Welcome to my channel. Hello guys, I'm Screen Recorder and today I will be doing storytelling The Golden Branch. The Golden Branch. The Golden Branch is about a betrothed couple discover beauty and love in this magical adventure. Once upon a time, there was a king who was so morose and disagreeable that he was feared by all his subjects, and with good reasons, as for the most trifling offences he would have them punished. This King Grumpy, as he was called, had one son who was as different from his father as he could possibly be. No prince equaled him in cleverness and kindness of heart, but unfortunately he was most terribly ugly. He had crooked legs and squinting eyes, a large mouth all on one side, and a hunchback. Never was there a beautiful soul in such a frightful little body, but in spite of his appearance, everybody loved him. The queen, his mother, called him Curlicue, because it was a name she rather liked, and it seemed to suit him. King Grumpy, who cared a great deal more for his own grandeur than for his son's happiness, wished to betroth the prince to the daughter of a neighboring king, whose great estates joined his own, for he thought that this alliance would make him more powerful than ever, and as for the princess, she would do very well for Prince Curlicue, for she was as ugly as himself. Indeed, though she was the most amiable creature in the world, there was no concealing the fact that she was frightful, and so lame that she always went about with a crutch, and people called her Princess Cabbage Stalk. The king, having asked for and received a portrait of this princess, had it placed in his great hall under a canopy, and sent for Prince Curlicue, to whom he said that as this was the portrait of his future bride, he hoped that the prince found it charming. The prince, after one glance at it, turned away with a disdainful air, which greatly offended his father. "Am I to understand that you are not pleased?" he said very sharply. "No, sire," replied the prince. "How could I be pleased to marry an ugly, lame princess?" Certainly it is becoming in you to object to that," said King Grumpy, "seeing you are ugly enough to frighten anyone yourself." "That is the very reason," said the prince, "that I wish to marry someone who is not ugly. I am quite tired enough of seeing myself." "I tell you that you shall marry her," cried King Grumpy angrily. And the prince, seeing that it was of no use to remonstrate, bowed and retired. As King Grumpy was not used to being contradicted in anything, he was very much displeased with his son, and ordered that he should be imprisoned in the tower that was kept on purpose for rebellious princess. But had not been used for about 200 years, because there had not been any. The prince thought all the rooms looked strangely old-fashioned, with their antique furniture, but as there was a good library, he was pleased. And he was very fond of reading, and he soon got permission to have as many books as he liked. But when he looked at them, he found that they were written in a forgotten language, and he could not understand a single word, though he amused himself with trying. King Grumpy was convinced that Prince Curlicue would soon get tired of being in prison, so he consents to marry the Princess Cabbage Stalk. Then that he sent ambassadors to her father proposing that she should come and be married to his son, who would make her perfectly happy. The king was delighted to receive so good an offer for his unlucky daughter, though, to tell the truth, he found it impossible to admire the prince's portrait which had been sent to him. However, he had it placed in a However, he had it placed in as favorable a light as possible and sent for the princess. But the moment she caught sight of it, she looked the other way and began to cry. The king, who was very much annoyed to see how greatly she disliked it, took a mirror and holding it up before the unhappy princess said, "I see, you do not think that the prince is handsome, but look at yourself and see if you have any rights to complain about that." "Sire," she answered, "I do not wish to complain, only I beg of you, do not make me marry at all. I had rather be the unhappy Princess Stock all my life than inflict the sight of my ugliness on anyone else." But the king would not listen to her and sent her away with the ambassadors. In the meantime, the prince was kept safely locked up in his tower, and that he might be as dull as possible, King Drummy ordered that no one should speak to him, and that they should give him next to nothing to eat. But all the prince's guards were so fond of him that they did everything they dared, in spite of the king, to make the time pass pleasantly. One day, as the prince was walking up down the great gallery, thinking how miserable it was to be so ugly and to be forced to marry an equally frightful princess, he looked up suddenly and noticed that the painted windows were particularly bright and beautiful, and for the sake of doing something that would change his sad thoughts, he began to examine them attentively. He found that the pictures seemed to be scenes from the life of a man who appeared in every window, and the prince, fancying that he saw in this man some resemblance to himself, began to be deeply interested. In the first window there was a picture of him in one of the turrets of the tower. Farther on, he was seeking something in a chink in the wall. In the next picture, he was opening an old cabinet with a golden key, and so it went on through numbers of scenes, and presently the prince noticed that another figure occupied the most important place in each scene, and this time it was a tall, handsome young man. Poor Prince Curlicue found it a pleasure to look at him. He was so straight and strong. By this time, it had grown dark, and the prince had to go back to his own room. And to amuse himself, he took up a quaint old book and began to look at the pictures, but his surprise was great to find that they represented the same scene as the windows of the gallery, and what was more, that they seemed to be alive. In looking at pictures of musicians, he saw their hands move and heard sweet sounds. There was a picture of a ball, and the prince could watch the little dancing people come and go. He turned a page, and there was an excellent smell of a savory dinner, and one of the figures who sat at the feast looked at him and said, "We drink your health, Curlicue. Try to give us our queen again, for if you do, you will be rewarded. If not, it will be the worse for you." At these words, the prince, who had been growing more and more astonished, was very terrified, and dropping the book with a crash, he sank back insensible. The noise he made brought his guards to his aid, And as soon as he revived, they asked him what was the matter. He answered that he was so faint and giddy with hunger that he had imagined he saw and heard all sorts of strange things. Thereupon, in spite of the king's orders, the guards gave him an excellent supper, and when he had eaten it, he again opened his book, but could see none of the wonderful pictures, which convinced him that he must have been dreaming before. However, when he went into the gallery next day and looked at the painted windows again, he found that they moved, and the figures came and went as if they had been alive. And after watching the one who was like himself find the key in the crack of the turret wall and open the old cabinet, he determined to go and examine the place himself and try to find out what was the mystery was. So he went up into the turret and began to search about and tap upon the walls, and all at once he came upon a place that sounded hollow. Taking a hammer, he broke away a bit of the stone and found behind it a little golden key. The next thing to do was to find the cabinet, and the prince soon came to it. He led away in a dark corner, though indeed it was so old and better looking that he would never have noticed it of his own accord. At first he could not see any keyhole, but after a careful search he found one hidden in the carving, and the golden key was fitted it. So the prince gave it a vigorous turn and the doors flew open. Ugly and old as the cabinet was outside, nothing could have been more rich and beautiful than what met the prince's astonished eyes. Every drawer was made of crystal, of amber, or of some precious stone, and was quite full of every kind of treasure. Prince Curlicue was delighted. He opened one after another, until at last he came to one tiny drawer which contained only one emerald key. "I believe this must open that little golden door in the middle," said the prince to himself, and he fitted in the little key and turned it. The tiny door swung back, and a soft crimson light gleamed over the whole cabinet. The prince found that it proceeded from an immense, glowing carbuncle made into a box which lay before him. He lost no time in opening it. But what was his horror when he found that it contained a man's hand, which was holding a portrait. His first thought was to put back the terrible box and fly over the turrets, but a voice in his ear said, "This hand belonged to one whom you can help and restaurant. Look at this beautiful portrait, the original of which was the cause of my misfortunes. And if you wish to help me, go without a moment's delay to the great gallery. Notice where the sun rays fall most brightly, and if you seek there, you will find my treasure." The voice ceased, and though the prince in his bewilderment asked various questions, he received no answer. So he put back the box and locked the cabinet up again, and having replaced the key in the crack in the wall, hastened down the gallery. When he entered it, all the windows shook and clattered in the strangest way, but the prince did not heed them. He was looking so carefully for the place where the sun shone most brightly, and it seemed to him that it was upon the portrait of a most splendidly handsome young man. He went out and examined it, and found that it rested against the ebony and gold paneling, just like any of the other pictures in the gallery. He was puzzled, not knowing what to do next, until it occurred to him to see if the windows would help him, and looking at the nearest, he saw a picture of himself lifting the picture from the wall. The prince took the hints and lifting aside the pictures without difficulty, found himself a marble hall adorned with statues. From this, he passed on through numbers of splendid rooms until at last he reached one all hung with blue gauze. The walls were of turquoise, and upon a and upon a low couch lay a lovely lady who seemed to be asleep. Her hair, black as ebony, was spread across the pillows, making her face look ivory white. And the prince noticed that she was unquiet, and when he softly advanced, fearing to wake her, he could hear her sighs, and murmur to herself, "Ah, how dare you think to win my love by separating me from my beloved Florimond, and in my presence cutting off that dear hand that even you should have fear and honor?" And then the tears rolled slowly down the lovely lady's cheeks, and Prince Curlicue began to comprehend that she was under an enchantment, and that it was the hand of her lover that he had found. And then the tears rolled slowly down the lovely lady's cheeks, and Prince Curlicue began to comprehend that she was under an enchantment, and that it was the hand of her lover that he had found. At this moment, a huge eagle flew into the room, holding in his talons a golden branch, upon which were growing what looked like clusters of cherries, only every cherry was a single glowing ruby. This he presented to the king, who guessed by this time that he was in some way to break the enchantment that surrounded the sleeping lady. Taking the branch, he touched her lightly with it, saying, "Fair one, I know not by what enchantment thou art bound, but in the name of thy beloved Florimond, I conjure thee to come back to the life which thou hast lost, but not forgotten." Instantly the lady opened her lustrous eyes and saw the eagle hovering near. "Ah, stay, dear love, stay!" she cried, but the eagle, uttering a dolorous cry, fluttered his broad wings and disappeared. And the lady turned to the Prince Curlicue and said, "I know that it is to you I owe my deliverance from an enchantment which has healed me for 200 years. If there is anything that I can do for you in return, you have only to tell me, and all my fairy power shall be used to make you happy." "Madam," said Prince Curlicue, "I wish to be allowed to restore your beloved Florimond to his natural form, since I cannot forget the tears you shed for him." "This is very amiable of you, dear prince," said the fairy, "but it is reserved for another person to do that. I cannot explain more at present. But is there anything you wish for yourself?" "Madam," cried the prince, flinging himself down at her feet, "only look at my ugliness. I am called Curlicue, and am an object of derision. I entreat you to make me less ridiculous." "Rise, prince," said the fairy, touching him with the golden branch. Be as accomplished as you are handsome. Take the name of Prince Peerless, since that is the only title which will suit you now." Silent from joy, the prince kissed her hand to express his thanks, and when he rose and saw his new reflection in the mirrors which surrounded him, he understood that Curlicue was indeed gone forever. "How I wish," said the fairy, "that I dare to tell you what is in store for you, and warn you of the traps which lie in your path, but I must not. Fly from the tower, prince, and remember that the fairy Doceline will be your friend always." When she finished speaking, the prince, to his great astonishment, found himself no longer in the tower, but sent out in a thick forest at least 100 leagues away from it. And there we must leave him for the present, and see what was happening elsewhere. When the guards found that the prince did not ask for his supper as usual, they went into his room, and not finding him there, were very much alarmed, and searched the tower from turret to Dagon, and without success, knowing that the king would certainly have them punished for allowing the prince to escape. They then agreed to say that he was ill, and after making the smallest among them look as much like Prince Curlicue as possible, they put him in his bed and sent to inform the king. King Grumpy was quite delighted to hear that his son was ill, and for he thought that he would all the sooner he brought to do as he wished, and marry the princess. So he sent back to the guards to say that the prince was to be treated so severely as before, which was just what they had hoped he would say. In the meantime, the princess Capestock had reached the palace, travelling in a litter. King Grumpy went out to meet her, but when he saw her with a skin like a tortoise, her thick eyebrows making above her large nose, and her mouth from ears to ear, he could not help crying out, "Well, I must say Curlicue is ugly enough, but I don't think you need have twice. Well, I must say Curlicue is ugly enough, but I don't think you need have thought twice before consenting to marry him." "Sire," she replied, "I know too well what I am like to be hurt by what you say, but I assure you that I have no wish to marry your son. I had rather be called Princess Capestock than Queen Curlicue." This made King Grumpy very angry. "Your father has sent you here to marry my son," he said, "and you may be sure that I am not going to offend him by altering his arrangements." So the poor princess was sent away in disgrace to her own apartments, and the ladies who attended upon her were changed to bring her to a better mind. At this juncture of guards, who were in great fear that they would be found out, sent to tell the king that his son was dead, which annoyed him very much. He had once made up his mind that it was entirely the princess' fault, and gave orders that she could be imprisoned in the tower in Prince Curlicue's place. The Princess Capestock was immensely astonished at this unjust proceeding, and sent many messages to remonstrance to King Grumpy, but he was in such a temper that no one dared to deliver them, or to send the letters which the princess wrote to her father. However, as she did not know this, she lived in an hope of soon going back to her own country, and tried to amuse herself as well as she could until the time should come. Every day she walked up and down the long gallery until she too was attracted and fascinated by the ever-changing pictures in the windows, and recognized herself in one of the figures. "They seem to have taken a great delight in painting me since I came to this country," she said to herself. "One would think that I and my crush would put in on purpose to make that slim, charming young stepfather in the next picture look prettier than One would think that I and my crush were put in on purpose to make that slim, charming young stepfather in the next picture look prettier by contrast. Ah, how nice it would be to be as pretty as that." And then she looked at herself in a mirror, and turned away quickly with tears in her eyes from the doleful sight. this is the end of storytelling the Golden Branch Part 1. So last but not least, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel, like my video, share my video, and click on the bell. When you click on the bell, remember to turn on the notification so that you will know when I upload a new video every day. So comment below on any topic or any story you would like to see on my next video, or anything or any opinions you would like to tell me, just comment below. So we'll see you on the next video. Bye!